Hi, I'm Matthew, this is Minescape, and in this video we're going to discuss web weapons from the older editions of Warhammer 40,000. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And in a time of endless war, there is with it a plethora of means to dispatch one's foes. We all know the common ranged weapons: the bolt gun, the plasma gun, the melter gun, the las cannon. They've been with us since the beginning, and, to one degree or another, have been in our armies throughout the lifetime of the tabletop game. Each of these comes from a family of weapons: bolt pistol, bolt gun, heavy bolter, las pistol, las gun, las cannon. It's a popular formula: baby bear, standard bear, heavy bear. There are other families too: plasma, melter, shuriken, and that's only naming a few. As the years have gone on, the list of families has expanded, but I want to focus on those found in the 2nd edition rules, and it's here we find another less well-known group of firearms: the web weapons. There are 2 entries for such weapons in the War Gear book from 2nd edition 40k. The first comes in the pistols section. The web pistol or glue gun is an unusual weapon not seen frequently on the battlefield. It is mostly used by institutional forces for crowd control and suppression, and its effects are usually debilitating rather than deadly. The pistol is bulky with a cone-shaped nozzle and has a distinctive underslung canister. The canister contains the weapon's ammunition, a special gluey chemical called webchem. When the pistol is fired, a dark mass of tangled threads is thrown forward over the target. As the threads are exposed to the air, they expand and solidify, quickly forming a dense web of entangled sticky threads. The web contracts and binds the victim tightly, preventing all movement and action. The harder a victim struggles, the tighter the web becomes, and if the victim continues to struggle, the web will eventually crush him. What sets this apart from most other weapons is its profile. Firstly, its range is short. In fact, it has the shortest range amongst all the listed pistols in this book. It is also without the typical characteristics for 2nd edition: strength, save modifier, armor penetration. But it does have special rules for damage. And this is where things get interesting. A model firing the web pistol must roll to hit as normal, with a -1 modifier for being more than 4 inches from its target. But if it does hit, no wound roll is needed and no armor save can mitigate its effects. If a model is hit by a web pistol, it is said to be enmeshed and may do nothing until released, or it breaks free from the web. To break free, at the start of their turn, a model must roll a d6 and add their strength characteristic. If the total is 9 or more, they may move and act normally. If the total is less than 9, they need to make their normal armor save or take a point of damage, which represents the increasingly constricting web crushing its victim. Vehicles cannot be affected. However, their crew and passengers in open-top vehicles can be. A webbed driver cannot pilot his vehicle, and the vehicle is rendered out of control. The rules include a diagram for clarity, which is notable since many weapons, all of which are more common, do not occupy as much space in the book as this niche sidearm. Another noteworthy fact is that the rules mention a web-dissolving solvent carried by all who wield this weapon, presumably so they can free their victims. And if you were worried that this wasn't very grimdark, then fret not. The solvent had no rules in-game. Let us now turn our attention to the heavy webber, the bigger and badder sibling of the web pistol. The heavy webber is a larger version of the web pistol or glue gun. Like the web pistol, it is an unusual battlefield weapon, being more suited to purposes of crowd control and mob suppression as its effects are debilitating rather than deadly. Its appearance is similar to the pistol, with a pronounced cone-shaped nozzle and conspicuous canister containing web chem. The chemical web is fired from the nozzle, shooting a tangle of irregular threads, which quickly solidify and form strong sticky mesh which covers and traps the target. Apart from a longer range and no-to-hit modifier, the standout differences are that a heavy webber can enmesh vehicles. They also have a 2-inch blast radius. I suppose that explains the unusual template that we got in the box set. The heavy webber worked much the same as its handheld counterpart, beating the score of 9 still applied. Of course, with a blast radius it could affect a number of victims. The main fun when using this weapon is attempting to web a vehicle. The rules express the difficulty of hitting a moving vehicle. The faster the vehicle moved in its last movement phase, the harder it is to snare it. A table is included to reflect this. A minimum roll of 3+ was needed to hit a slow vehicle. But if the vehicle moved more than 16 inches, it couldn't be webbed at all. A successful hit brings the vehicle to an immediate halt regardless of speed. The crew and passengers incur severe whiplash and each sustain a single strength 4 hit, normal armor saves allowed. While enmeshed, a vehicle can do nothing. Troops embarked may not leave or fire from the vehicle. At the start of each turn, though, the vehicle can roll to escape on the vehicle escape chart. Only a 5 or 6 allows for complete freedom again. A 4 allows a random weapon to be used. A 2 or 3 is a fail, but they can try to escape again next turn. A 1, however, is permanent incarceration, unable to move or shoot for the rest of the game. The vehicle and crew relegated to nothing more than a terrain piece. As for passengers, they would also be trapped, unable to disembark at all. So that's the rules. Make of them what you will. My opinion? The web pistol seems a minor annoyance. Its short range means it doesn't threaten much, and if the bearer does fire it, it's not firing something else potentially more deadly. In a normal game, it's probably only going to affect 3 models by the time it gets into range, given pistols can only be fired once per turn, and, at 8 inches, you've made the decision to shoot rather than charge into close combat. It's 7 points in the Codex Army lists, which puts it as the second most expensive pistol, behind the needle pistol. But what if your shot does land true? It should be noted that models with a strength less than 3 cannot escape the web, snotlings for instance. However, strength 3 troops are plentiful, and can only escape on a roll of a 6. Imperial Guardsmen, most Eldar, Orc Boys, and Termagants to name a few, are all vulnerable to the web. But does it matter if one ordinary trooper is disabled? Perhaps not, unless they are your guy carrying a special or heavy weapon. If the web pistol entraps a character though, that's a precious game turn in which they can do nothing. But what about the heavy webber? I might have this completely wrong, and I'm sure you will let me know if I am down in the comments. But it seems broken. OP. Humour me here. I said the web pistol was an annoyance, mainly because it had a short range. The heavy weapon threatens everything within 24 inches. And it has a blast radius. That could be a whole squad tied up. All that's needed is a roll to hit. They have a chance to escape, of course, but even strength 4 troops are only managing this on 5+. And if a transport vehicle is the target, there's a 50% chance each turn that they could be stuck with no chance for their passengers to escape. A Lehman Russ demolisher, for example, affected by the heavy webber, only has a 50% chance to fire 1 weapon. So it's not guaranteed, but there's a reasonable chance it could ruin someone's battle plan. There's a catch though. As scary as this weapon seems, the last mention of it seems to be in the War Gearbook. The Codex Army lists, and even the codexes themselves, do not mention it. Which means, in 2nd edition, it doesn't have a points cost. Not that I can see anyway. So without a points cost, we'll never know how broken this weapon is. So why were these weapons here at all? Having read around, they seem to be a holdover from Rogue Trader, which placed a heavier emphasis on roleplay rather than conflicts between larger forces. In such a game, there was no doubt a need for a non-lethal weapon to forge a narrative. They even made a model holding a Weber. The 2nd edition Wargear book seems to have inherited these weapons, perhaps with the intention of implementing them in later rules, but I guess they never developed, like other minor things from that edition. The fluff indicates the scarcity of web weapons anyway. So niche in fact that Imperial agents are the only force in the Codex army lists that can take the web pistol, perhaps as a means to take hostages for questioning, or worse. Why they were not included later on is uncertain. Perhaps the game designers thought the web weapons were just too niche, or too game-breaking. A similar entry for the web pistol can be found in the Necromunda rulebook from the same era. It gives us a bit more detail than the Wargear book, and a picture to boot. Notable is this sentence: "It is used by the Necromundan House's own security forces as a means of suppressing crowds or taking captives without harming them. Nevertheless, the rules are the same, but with the addition of rules for freeing victims if a friendly model, also bearing a web pistol, is within 1 inch of a tangled ally." And so, as far as I can tell, that was the end of web weapons. That is, until their resurgence with the Genestealer Cult's Codex in 7th edition, but without the same level of quirkiness unique to the older 40k iterations. If you have any experience with web weapons from 2nd edition or Rogue Trader, I would love to hear about them in the comments. Take care, and thanks for watching.